So, as you heard, Moonlight is an amazing movie. I talked to somebody who had just come back from Toronto, and he said, you should have seen it. There were lines around the block to get in. The theater was full. They showed it in an IMAX, which must have been really eye-popping. That at the end, there was just this waterfall, this tsunami of applause. People were so impressed. And then just before that, Telluride, where people cried in their seats. It's not
people cried in my arms.
People cried in your arms.
I have never had a 65-year-old white person cry in my arms, but it happened. Like people shaking, like grown men.
How did that make you feel?
I mean, I guess we're jumping ahead, but
we are jumping ahead.
It made me feel, you know, the movie's about a very specific place and specific people, you know, pursuant to where Terrell and I grew up. And I just, you know, when you're from a certain place, you've lived there all your life, you just don't think that other people will immediately be able to see those people the way you saw them. Yeah, and because Telluride, Colorado could not be farther away from Liberty City, Miami, Florida. And yet the distance was shrank by this piece of art. So, yeah, it was
what art's
amazing.
supposed to do. We're going to stop talking about how beautiful this film is and give you a couple of seconds to see for yourself how beautiful this film is. We actually have, courtesy of A24, the trailer to Moonlight, so take a look.
What you looking at me like that for? What, man? Come on, you just drove down here? Yeah. Who is you, Sharon? For a long time, try not to remember. Try to forget all those times.
At some point, you gotta decide for yourself who you're gonna be. Can't let nobody make that decision for you.
You gonna tell him why the other boys kick his ass all the time? What's wrong?
You good?
No, I done seen good, and you ain't it.
Remember the last time I saw you?
You're my only. I'm your only. No, you gon' listen.
To who, Ma? Huh? To you? Who is you, man? I ain't seen you in like a decade. It's not what I expected. What did you expect?
So the release date is what, October?
October 21st, New York and LA, and then we'll see what happens after that.
Okay. A lot of people say they become filmmakers because they don't see what they feel like they need to see on the screen. Was that you, or did you have another reason?
No, I mean, I kind of stumbled into this. I was going to school at Florida State, which is a big football school, and the only way you have an arts program at a school like that is if it's hitched to the athletic program. So the film school was in the football stadium.
What?
And I was going to a game, and there was a sign that said film school. Now after I got into filmmaking, I realized that the direct path to me becoming a good filmmaker was to express myself, to use my voice as a tool. This guy, Wes Ball, who did Maze Runner, was a classmate. David Robert Mitchell, who did It Follows. Those guys were really good immediately. I was not. But my professor said, well, your tool is going to be your voice. And so it's sort of like, I guess my filmmaking aligned with activism in a certain way. And that's when things kind of took off. But just being a football fan was all it was.
Who knew? What were you seeing, or what weren't you seeing, as a film goer and a film student on screen that made you say, there's a niche that isn't being filled, there's something a question that isn't being asked or answered, why not?
Yeah, other than the work of Spike, when I was in school, I think I'm a little bit older than I look, maybe.
Yeah, you got that baby face.
Yeah, there you go. I did find that I wasn't seeing stories about people that were where I was from, I wasn't seeing Southern stories. I wasn't seeing, Black Southern stories. I wasn't seeing Miami Black Southern stories, and I certainly wasn't seeing queer Southern stories. And so, yeah, I felt like there was room for these voiceless people to be given a voice. And as someone who creates images, rather than complaining about those images not being presented, it's incumbent upon me to create those images. So.
Did you worry about sort of exoticizing poverty because the film is so beautiful? I mean, there have been other films that have been rural, for instance, that looked at black poverty where people were like, oh, it's just so gorgeous, it's so amazing, but it was still grinding poverty. This is different, it's urban, it addresses a lot of the ills that we hear talking heads and policymakers talk about all the time, and yet it's astonishingly beautiful. Were you worried that the beauty was going to take away from the other part that you were doing?
No, not at all, because intellectually, I didn't approach it that way. As an artist, I like to describe myself as chopping wood, And so it's a very sort of like tunnel vision, finite view of what I'm doing, what's right in front of me. Terrell McCraney wrote the play in Moonlight, Black Boys Look Blue, which is about us growing up in Liberty City. We didn't grow up together, but our lives were so parallel. Our mothers went through the same struggle with addiction. We went to the same schools. And I described Terrell's play as a memory of my memories. And my memory growing up in this very rough place was not of a very dark, neo-realist, miserableist sort of experience. Miami's got a lot of green grass, this open sky, and the colors,
Just saturated.
Super saturated,
Yeah.
but it's like an earned saturation. Some of these buildings haven't been painted in 40 years, and yet they become this beautiful pastel kind of hue. And all I wanted to do was just capture what I remembered, which was beautiful, despite things being rough.
The other thing that struck me when I saw this was that we often see images of black men in the arts and in mass media that are very different from this image. That people are often, you look at Juan, who was Chiron's mentor and protector and father figure in many ways, and this is a guy who people would, if he got on the elevator, kind of clutch the shoulder straps, cross the streets, and yet what you were showing was this protectiveness, this tenderness that we normally do not see exhibited by black men in film. How hard was it to do that?
Not hard at all. The whole piece kind of spun on that relationship. Terrell McCraney actually had, he was a kid in the neighborhood who was picked on, and the first person who took up for him was the dude who ran the corner, And so it seems like a drug dealer with a heart of gold, although I think when you see the film, Mahershala's character Juan does not have a heart of gold. He can do this or he can do that, and it's all a choice. But that came from Terrell's experience. The thing with the film, this is identity. It seems to be a theme that's in a lot of my work and some of the short films I've done, the first feature and this feature. And I think on some level, identity is a performance, and I think it's like a nurture versus nature thing. I'm a big nurture person, not a nature person. And I think when you don't see yourself represented in arts and letters, you don't see an affirmation that there's a different way to be masculine, to be black, to be male, to be black and gay and male, all these different things, but you're only presented with one version of it, you can start to retract or shrink away from the version of your true self and embrace this other version because it's the only thing you see. And so I think in that sort of way, one, it wasn't difficult at all to create these characters, but I think two, it was not necessarily important, but it felt right because there's all these different degrees of what it means to be black, what it means to be male, what it means to be gay, what it means to be poor. I mean, I'm just drilling down to what Terrell and I went through,
One of the things I thought was very interesting was, so you have this different kind of black men, or several different kind of black men in this film. In showing this difference to larger society, do you think larger society will absorb that and change how it looks at, how it reacts to black men? You can go to your 68-year-old white man sobbing in your arms.
I think it goes back to my previous statement about identity. I think the flip side of that is, if you as an observer don't know anyone like these characters and you also don't see them anywhere in arts and letters, you begin to believe that they're invisible. They literally do not exist because you don't encounter them, and you also don't encounter them when you're looking at this or you're looking at that. And I think the reason why people have responded so well in these two places we've screened, you know, in Toronto and in Telluride, is because I think the performances are very rich. I didn't perform them, so I can say the performances are very rich. And people are actually seeing these characters, you know? And when I say see them, I don't mean they're looking at them on a screen. I mean they're actually like seeing them in here, because that's what the actors are putting into it. And now those characters exist in a certain way. And once you see somebody, I believe as a humanist, you can't help but empathize with them, you know, if you're seeing them in a true way.
I think you kind of look at drug dealers in a different way.
I hope so, right? Because I've looked at drug dealers in a different way all my life, you know?
Well,
in
you
a
know,
three-dimensional way, I would say.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
There's an interesting point where this person who has been protecting and nurturing and really saving Chiron is also a drug dealer, and the kid makes the connection. Sort of, you know, do you deal drugs? And he has, you can see him struggle within himself. How do I answer this? Is the kid going to see me differently because I admit to doing something that maybe he doesn't approve of?
Yeah.
I mean, he really had this moral struggle that was...
Well, and for Terrell and I, the really, not the provocative thing, but the interesting thing about creating these characters was worlds do collide, and these issues of morality, you know, if you're stuck in a cabin in the woods and you only have a butter knife, you're going to find a way to feed your family, come hell or high water. You got to chop wood. You're making a film, you got to chop wood. I think with these characters, they're doing right, they're doing wrong, and we wanted to find a way to very organically have those things collide. You know, Juan cannot get off the hook. You know, Mahershala Ali's character is not going to be let off the hook. And it's going to be the smallest person in the room who said the least amount of words in the film who asked the question. Because to me as a child, you know, what's the word? It's from the mouth of babes, you know? When it comes from the mouth of babes, it hits you like a ton of bricks, you know?
Well, you could see the wheels turning, and you're right, he doesn't talk a lot. He's a child of few words, but when he does, it sort of goes, you know, right here.
Yeah, I'm sorry we're talking about this thing you guys have not seen in this way, but hopefully it'll make you want to go out and see it.
It's definitely worth going and seeing.
Nice.
Or a couple of times if you've seen it already. You tackle some hard issues in here. I mean, it's a beautiful film, but we're talking about poverty, we're talking about violence, we're talking about drug addiction. Did you ever think of this as a sort of oblique way into a really hard national conversation, or were you just, it's my art, I'm gonna make my film?
I was just, it's our art, because I always include Terrell. It's our art, we're just going to make our film. You know, and even beyond that, it's our experience, you know. So there's been this commentary for people who've seen the film that it's a large statement on the black experience. And I can't deny that, you know, there will be a conversation about what the film says about the black experience, but I can only approach it through my experience and Terrell's experience growing up on a very particular block at a very particular time in a very particular neighborhood, and with both our moms going through a very particular struggle with drug addiction, you know. But hopefully in that specificity, there is something, one, that's universal commentary on the human condition, on the American condition, I mean, we're at the Atlantic, so I got to drill down and talk all highfalutin, but you know what I mean? It was just about what actually happened to us, and always just being clear and organic and authentic to that, you know.
There's this argument that we are experiencing a sort of renaissance in black film, which I think is an argument that gets made about every 25 years.
Exactly.
Some of you have 3 black films, and it's a renaissance. There's going to be more. It's going to be post-racial, and Hollywood's going to be totally integrated, and we're not going to have this conversation 5 years from now. Yeah. But the latest conversation that I hear says, these amazing works, and yours is mentioned among them, are showing that black filmmakers are no longer sort of giving us polemics, they're giving us art. Do you think that's fair? And why or why not?
I don't think it's fair at all. I mean, it would almost be saying if the first black director won an Oscar for this or that this year, it would be like this is the first time that a black director was capable of winning an Oscar, and that's simply not fucking true. I'm gonna curse, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was gonna say I have no comment, but I just made a comment on that. But no, that's bogus. It doesn't make any sense to me. You know, we didn't just start creating art. I mean, and when I say we, I mean we did not just start creating art. It definitely has been happening.
I am seeing that our clock has wound down for our actual
we don't care about the
conversation.
clock.
Oh, we're not,
we just
we're not
talking.
going to pay any
We just
attention to
started
the
talking.
man's technology. We're just going to keep on going. We'll
Well,
keep
it's
going for a couple
questions
minutes,
from
but
the
we want to
audience,
leave questions from the audience,
Hello.
which is why we paid attention to the clock. So, does anybody out there have a question?
I
We
do.
can't see. We're blinded.
Hi, my name is Rafi, and I'm a journalist. And from the looks of the trailer, you're shining visibility on not only people of color, but queer people of color. And in your experience, why do you think that the intersections of sexuality and race often get ignored?
I don't know why they get ignored or if they get ignored. I just know when Terrell's piece came to me, the sexuality was a core identity of the character. I approached this as an ally. I mean, you can read this at this point. I'm straight. I'm not gay. I approached it as an ally, and as an ally, empathy can only get me so far. But yet, this was a core to the identity of the character, and it was core to the voice of the source material. And so it felt like removing that intersectionality would have been gross. You know, it wouldn't have made any sense. And also, too, as an ally, I didn't want to be a passive ally. You know, when the Marriage Equality Act passed, everybody put the rainbow overlay over their Facebook profile, which is really sweet, you know, but it's not active, you know? and I saw this. Once I read it and I knew I loved the character, I loved the story, I was like, this is my opportunity to be an active ally, you know? And I just thought it just made, we're talking about masculinity and identity and all these things, it just made the character to me even richer, and it was true to Terrell's experience. So there was just no way I was not going to do it.
This one over here.
Hey, T. Hubbard, thank you for making this film. I can't wait to see it. I'm going to bring everybody I know. Congratulations. We've been here all day, and I wanted to ask this of the last panel, but I think you might be better to answer this. Connect the dots for me, like between what we've been talking about all day, which is culture, race, policing, and then diversity in the movies. How does that connect to how you all drive culture, how it shapes what's happening? Someone put this on the agenda for a reason, and can you connect? Maybe everybody else already connected it. I haven't, so can you do that for us?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been here all day, honestly, but I did get a lot out of your question. The best thing I can say is, you know, we don't live in a vacuum. You know, we have these phones, we have these TVs, these laptops, all this stuff, and there's just information just going left and right. And right now, there is a critical imbalance in the sort of imagery we're getting on one side, and we're not getting nearly as much of it on this other side. And so I think we all just need to see much more of each other and much more varied depictions of each other. I think that's the only way, doing what I do, I'm speaking purely from the entertainment industry, that we can have a role in getting back to that balance so people can actually just see one another, you know? I really think there's a visibility complex or distress that's happening right now. I can't even mouth it because your question is getting so inside me. But I think as someone who creates arts and letters, you know, it's incumbent upon me and anybody else who does this to bring more balance to that, you know? Because it's not that this one image is wrong or people like that don't exist, but there are a whole lot of other people that are just not getting enough shine, and we got to give them more shine.
I think our time is up. We're getting that signal. It was a quickie.
Thank y'all. I apologize for cursing. I apologize. I should not have cursed. It just came out.